What's up everyone, I'm Twisted and today I bring you guys a segment from my full video on Act 3 of Season 2 of Arcane. I thought this part was interesting enough for me to edit it into its own video, especially for those of you who don't really like long videos. I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, consider subscribing, it's free and you can always change your mind later. We flash back to Jace asking the mage why he gave him the stone. This time we see more of what happened, as the mage reveals himself to be Viktor.
I thought I could bring an end to the world's suffering, but when every equation was solved, all that remained were fields of dreamless solitude. There is no price to perfection, only an end to pursuit. In all timelines, in all possibilities, only you can show me this.
As Viktor says, I thought that could bring an end to the world's suffering, we get a shot of the mage giving Jace a stone that looks like the one we know, which is then followed by this shot of Jace from this world. Then, as Viktor talks about other timelines, we see multiple different stones instead, ending with the one we know, which leads to the events we saw and to our Jace. And now buckle in because I wanna talk about this. I think I understand what happened here, but I'm gonna go through my thought process to understand this because it took a while. My first reaction was, okay, this means that the mage who gave Jace the stone was Viktor, and this is supported by the fact that all Viktor's staff looks similar to the one from the mage, which led me to assume that Viktor has been going back in time, giving Jace different stones to try to stop himself from destroying the city, and that this universe they're in is just one of those timelines where they failed. Then I thought maybe the reason they managed to stop him in the main timeline was because this one had Echo, who built the Z-Drive, using the rune we saw in this timeline stone. But then I realized that in this destroyed universe, we see Jinx's hideout crashed onto the gates, which means that in this timeline, Echo was also able to use it to prevent Jinx from killing herself, so things weren't adding up. For starters, if Viktor didn't want any of this to happen, he wouldn't have given Jace the stone. But maybe Viktor didn't want to stop any of this, maybe he just didn't want to end up alone, or he still wanted X-Tech to be a thing, whatever. Secondly, if giving Jace the stone is what leads this to happen, and this happening is what leads Viktor to give Jace the stone, then we have here a time loop. But you may say, hey, maybe before this loop there was a timeline that also led to a similar fate, despite Jace never receiving the stone. Sure, whatever. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but sure. And that's when it hit me. Literally, as I was writing this, I finally got it. There's no loop. There are alternate timelines, sure, but no loop. The mage from Jace's childhood and old Viktor are not the same person, and here's why. This destroyed timeline has the Jinx hideout on the gates, and Jace in this exact pose, because this is not exactly an alternate timeline. I think that instead of old Viktor pulling Jace to a parallel timeline, this old Viktor pulled Jace from the past. I think this Viktor is the future of our Viktor, which makes his dialogue make sense. This is a Viktor that won, but after doing so, saw nothing but solitude. So he pulled Jace from the past to this moment to show him how to defeat his past self, which was basically just show that past self the consequences of his actions. And you might be wondering, what about the line about the other timelines? What about the different stones? I think that might just be timelines Viktor visited or looked into when looking for a way to stop what he did. I'm not 100% sure, but this is the best I could come up with for now. Like, if he can teleport someone through time, he can probably also do this, right? Yeah, the framing was done in a way that made everyone think that some time traveling was involved, but I don't think it's the case. And you might ask, then why does Jace talk to old Viktor like he's the mage from his childhood?
Why did you ever give me this? Why?
Good question. Maybe because he doesn't know that Viktor isn't the mage. I mean, he had only seen the robes and the cane, so maybe he just assumed that they're the same person, at least until Viktor revealed himself. Yes, I know that there are parallel shots between the mage and Viktor, but I believe those were there to make us, the viewers, believe these were the same person before the big reveal at the end. Another question we might ask is, why doesn't Viktor look transformed here? I assume he's just able to change his own appearance at will, though I'm not really 100% sure. But if this is a Viktor that no longer believes in the glorious evolution, it makes sense for him to revert to his more human self. Either way, the anomaly patterns are still present in his face, but also on his robes. However, there are no patterns present in the mage. Let's go back to Viktor's line one more time. As Viktor says, I thought that could bring an end to the world's suffering, We get a shot of the mage giving Jace a stone that looks like the one we know, and then this shot of Jace from this world. Here, he's talking about the fate he experienced. The stone is the same from our Jace, because this is where our main universe was headed toward. Then, as Viktor talks about other timelines, we see multiple different stones instead, ending with the one we know, which leads to the events we saw and to our Jace. A Jace that has yet to experience this fate. A Jace pulled to the future of his own world, so he can then return to his own time and prevent it. I think this is what makes the most sense. Downside, the mage might actually be Ryze, and if that's the case, why isn't he blue? Thank you so much for watching till the end, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and consider watching the full video, link in the description. With this being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.